Sing to the Lord and you sing. I sing to you with all my heart, will my lips sing praises to your name. Dance, dance to the Lord and lift my hands to you with all my strength will I live, and in your presence dance. I humble myself before you, grateful I'll always be. For you have brought me salvation. You delivered me. Without you I would have fallen. Sin overwhelmed me. Without you I would have never known. Sweet mercy, with all my heart will my lips sing praises to your name. With all my strength will I live. song I sing to you with all my heart. Will my lips sing praises to your name? Dance, dance, dance to the Lord. I lift my hands to you with all my strength. Will I lead and take your presence
Thanks for
Baruch Hashem Yahuwah, welcome to our Yom Shlishi broadcast. Our daily broadcast in the Word is brought to you by Kana Basham Laterufa, potent, powerful, full spectrum. Kana Basham isolate, 48 milligrams of CBD per dropper, 50 milligrams of CBD per dropper. Our delicious gummy bears, you got to get these. They help and they're delicious and they're very reasonable, 20 in a bottle. So praise Yah, we can bless the body of Messiah with the healing leaves that are promised. So go to Your Oils to IsraelGlobal.com, Your Oils to IsraelGlobal.com. And if you're running low, go ahead and place your order. I have the gummies are good. Yes, absolutely. The gummies are delicious. And here's a little gummy. This is what they look like. And they do help. I like the tinctures because they're potent. But regardless, you should be back live now. Just refresh your page. Hopefully that's the last time that's going to happen. Boker Tov, everybody. So hopefully that's the last time that'll happen. Just refresh your page. Hebrews, let's get right into the word. We're not going to give the enemy 1 foot, not even 1 inch. Okay, so that was the enemy. If it was not your computer, okay, it was our computer at our end. So let's get this thing straightened out and reboot it. Hebrews 3:7. So we learned yesterday in verse 6 that it's not you. Okay, it's here. The problem is here. Okay, so the enemy didn't want the broadcast to go out, obviously, but he doesn't have the final say. Yahusha does, right? So we learned yesterday that we must finish the race, because at the finish line, we have our hope, we have our joy, we have our confidence that we went through this life being faithful to the Messiah. Okay? We're in Hebrews chapter 3, and we ended yesterday with verse 6. It's not your computer, just reboot. And also, refresh your page. It's not your fault. Don't forget to invite everybody on social media. Paste the link and tell them that we'll be with them in a set-apart Torah study. Welcome, welcome. I see all your names. And I just want to get right into the word. But don't forget, these broadcasts are brought to you by the Kanabasham Leterufa. Okay? Kanabasham for healing without the THC. So you'll have all the benefits, arthritis, inflammation, pain relief without the THC. So make sure you order your supplies today, because sometimes we do run low, okay? Sometimes we get a lot of orders, 3-4 bottles at a time. And don't forget to order our balms, our creams, as well as our delicious gummies. I just had one, and they are delicious. As the Ruach HaKadosh says, as the Holy Spirit says, so the Ruach is talking to us, and what he's saying to us is, finish the race, finish the race. Hold fast, don't give up, don't quit. Your yesterdays can be brighter and more productive than your yesterdays, okay? So every day we get together, and every day the Ruach HaKadosh is speaking, reminding us. See, notice in verse 7, today, see? We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for a Shabbat. We don't have to wait for the Moadim. We don't have to wait for a Sukkot. Every day, the Ruach HaKadosh is speaking to us if we will take the time to hear his voice, okay? And every day when we allow the Ruach HaKadosh to speak to us and we hear his voice, it keeps us confident. It keeps us hopeful. Verse 6, unto the end, when Yahushua HaMashiach is standing on that finish line with a checkered flag, and you finish running your race, and then he says, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of the rewards that the master has provided for you. So you see, that's a thing. We have to remember, we don't need to wait for a time on the calendar to hear his voice. If you turn off Fox News, or you turn off social media for a little while today, or you don't get caught up in your shopping list and all the things you have to do, you will hear his voice, but you have to stop. And when we hear his voice every day, it helps us to finish the race. Because I know, for instance, over the course of 35 years of serving Yahuwah, when I went a day or 3 days, or sometime it was even worse than that, sometime it was like a week or like 2 weeks, and I would talk to Abba, I would pray, but I didn't hear his voice. And I would get worried. I would be concerned, is he still there? Does he love me? Has he checked out? Is he angry at me? And then I realized, well, I know for a fact that Yahuwah doesn't get angry at his children, because all the anger and the wrath for our sins and our rebellion, our chataot and peshaot, fell on the Messiah. So I know that Yahuwah does not punish his children, but he disciplines us. And so there were times when I felt that he was a million miles away, and I realized that, and I think that you all need to realize that you cannot check in with Yahuwah on Shabbat and expect to have a good, strong relationship with him. Or, matter of fact, you may not even finish the race that is set before you. Okay? I believe that in order to finish the race and have the confidence, the hope, and the joy at the finish line when Yahushua stands there with the checkered flag going, well done, good and faithful servant, we have to, part of that discipline is hearing the Ruach every day. So my mistake as a young believer was waiting till Shabbat or till the Moadim in order to hear his voice. And that's what got our forefathers into trouble. Okay? They would meet with him in the Ohel Moed, in the wilderness tabernacle, but they didn't have that daily discipline in their life to either hear his voice through prayer and then waiting for the answer. Like waiting is the harder part. Or going into the Word that day and hearing His voice in the Word, or joining a Torah study with other believers of like mind, like you are now. You will hear His voice through me. Oh, yes, you will. You will. Not that I am Yahuwah, but you will hear His voice through me, because I am devoted and dedicated to teaching only what He said and only what He did. Thank you, Achoti. We're back. Let everybody know, please. Copy the link on Facebook and Twitter or wherever, and invite others to join us. In India or Pakistan, everyone's welcome at my Father's table. Everyone is welcome. Muslims are welcome to be converted and look to me, all ye ends of the earth, and be saved. Everyone is welcome to make teshuvah and to turn from their own ways and to live in His ways. Harden not your levavot. Don't harden your heart. This is a daily call to keep our hearts soft. And part of keeping our heart soft is to eschew rebellion, to give honor to whom honor is due, double honor to those who labor in the word and doctrine. Like I said before, you don't have to call me pastor or you don't have to call me rabbi, but if you're walking in honor and you want to receive honor, you need to sow honor. So whatever you want to receive is what you need to sow. Okay, so if some people want to call me Moshe, that's fine. But I believe you're cheating yourself of honor, because you know I've been sent by heaven to share the word of Yahuwah with you. So when you honor me as one of His teachers, Yahuwah will honor you. You honor anybody, Yahuwah will honor you. And honor, and what is honor? Honor is recognizing the difference and honoring the difference in that person as opposed to other people. Okay? So when I pay an electrician $600 that I wouldn't pay you, I'm honoring the fact that he can fix the problem. I'm honoring the difference. Okay, the plumber can do what most of us can't do because he is gifted in that area to fix a problem. Okay, and even my wife calls me shaliach out of respect. I mean, when we're in private, no, but in public, and that is a godly trait to give honor, especially to those who labor and in the word and doctrine. So the key for us to finish is to keep our hearts soft and avoid rebellion. See, the one way to keep our hearts soft is to not have an attitude when people correct you, or when people guide you, or when people minister to you in the way that you think they should or they should, whatever. The point is, rebellion is a condition of the heart, and we are to keep our hearts pure in order to avoid the result of our forefathers in the day that Yahuwah sent them trials in the wilderness. You have to understand that it was Yahuwah who sent them those trials to see if their hearts would be hardened and they would abandon the cause, or to see if they would enter the promised land. And we know that out of 4 million people, only 2 of that generation that actually left Mitzrayim, only 2 of that generation. And that just confirms the teachings of Mashiach in Matthew 7, because the renewed covenant and the first covenant, of course, are always consistent. And he said very simple, very, very simple. He said, straight and narrow is the gate that leads to life, and few there be that find it. But broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be that go thereat. So we want to make sure that in order to stay on the straight and narrow path, that there's no rebellion in our lives toward Yahuwah, toward the kingdom, toward Shabbat guarding piety, and toward our leaders. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm fully submitted, to Yahuwah," but they mock and ridicule and question they're the overseers. And I'm sorry, the kingdom doesn't work that way. You may think it works that way, but it doesn't. If you're not honoring the overseers, and even I as a minister, I have to honor others horizontally who have been called by Yahuwah to minister. Okay, so when my good friend Elder Bob, I spoke to him last night on the phone, and he says shalom. He's very thankful to everybody for the opportunity to come on Yom Shishi, every Yom Shishi. And so I seek out other men that are called by heaven, people who do deliverance, people who teach the word in Ruach and Emet, and I seek out to be accountable to them so there's no rebellion in my heart. Okay, I try to practice what I preach. So I am accountable to others, and I speak to others in the ministry so that I'm not a lone ranger out there just doing my thing. Okay, so it's very important for leaders to be accountable, but the sheep have to make sure that they guard their heart, because when the shepherd does something, it's for their best interests. It's not to be spiteful or to ignore them. You know, sometimes sheep can feel like they're ignored, but no true shepherd is going to ignore somebody on purpose or willfully, and they seek the good of the sheep, and so it's important that if there are issues that you don't grasp or you don't understand, that you speak directly to your shepherd and get it straightened out, because he's there as Yahuwah's overseer to help you. Okay, and internalizing it and getting upset internally without letting the overseers understand what's going on is rebellion. That's just rebellion. That's childish rebellion, and we learn those ways from the world. So even though we might be 90 or 80 years old, we're still children in life in the way we handle things. Okay, and you can speak to the people in our ministry over the years. No one who makes an appointment with me is turned away, and we sit down and we talk and we make sure we understand each other. So that's what's required of folks in the community and what's required of me. And so there's very rarely over 35 years. October will be 35 years of public ministry this October. I was saved in October of 1984, radically saved, actually. And I think maybe I can count on one hand all the conversations that didn't end in a resolution, that was salted with love and with proper consolation via consultation. I can count them on my hand. Yeah, there were some people who walked out, and there are some people who left, and there are some people who had a few even F you and slammed the door. That happens, unfortunately, even with believers. So much for the theory that believers can't have demons. Seems to me when somebody walks out, slams the door, and says F you, they're urinating on the concept of honor. I mean, like just literally urinating on that. But I can count on one hand all the times when someone in our congregation had a concern and things were not clarified and settled for the benefit of the person and also of the community. So keep your heart soft. Don't harbor rebellion. As in the day, most things that cannot be settled in the congregation or in the community of believers are things that the individual doesn't want resolution. He'd rather huff and puff and have a right to be angry. You don't have rights to be angry. You remember, you sold all your rights to the Messiah when he bought you with a price. You signed a contract and you gave up all your rights. So whatever he tells you to do, you have to say hineni. Okay, you gave up all your rights. Don't pull rank on the Messiah. Well, I have the right to be heard, and I have the right to teach, and I have the right to lead war. You have no rights. We gave up all our rights so that when he tells us to do something, we are clear and free to obey. People like to, have a right. You don't have a right. Maybe in the Constitution, but not in a theocracy. And when you signed up for the kingdom of Yahuwah, you and I signed up for a theocracy. That means the Greek theos, which is Elohim, the Aramaic Eloha. When Eloha speaks, it's his house, it's his kingdom. We read yesterday, it's the house of the Son. It's the Son's house. He's the builder, the Ben Bina, and we are the servants in his house. Okay? Linda Thomas says, yes, sir, Shaliach, teacher, much respect. Yes, I know you respect me, sister. Amen, Allison, thank you. I know you guys respect me. By the way, Linda, your CBD order is being shipped today, okay? PayPal was holding your money for a day or two. So we're shipping that. You ordered the gummies and you ordered the balm and the CBD. So everybody, I'm telling you, this is powerful stuff. You can't get it at Whole Foods. You get cheap. If you look, you'll get like 14 or maybe 16 milligrams of CBD in a dropper. We come with 50. You're wasting your money, honestly. Just save your money and take Advil. Honestly, if you're going to do CBD, do it right. So make sure you contact us. Okay, and that's also how we support the ministry. So when you buy a bottle, 30, 40 bucks goes to the ministry. Can you think of something better? I mean, you're blessed with feeling better, and we're blessed also. Baruch Hashem. We don't charge for deliverance. We don't charge for teaching. We don't charge for visiting the sick, praying for the sick. We don't charge for the preaching of the gospel. But because we can't pay our bills, we get the healing leaves of Revelation 22 and Ezekiel 47 in its most potent form. Okay? So after the broadcast, your oils to Israel global. Oils. Like your arms is the ministry, but your oils, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible. So it says, keep our hearts soft by hearing his voice every day and not falling because of the trials in the wilderness. Okay, so our forefathers didn't do well. They didn't get a good report. The few who got a good report you could find in one chapter, like in Hebrews chapter 11. In the history of our nation, that there's very few that actually got a good report card from Yahuwah. We want to make sure that we're the straight and narrow people, the two in an entire generation. Husha and Caleb. Husha ben Nun and Caleb were the only two who were not rebellious from that entire generation that left Mitzrayim. So it's easy to be rebellious, okay? If everybody in a congregation or community is rising up, it's easy to join them in rebellion. But you don't want to be part of any rebellion. If there's ever slander or gossip or problems in the camp, you want to be on the side of Yahuwah. You want to be on the side of Shalom. You want to be on the side of the leaders. Okay, you have no right to be here and stay here and cause dissension. If you're going to be used by the enemy to cause rebellion, go down the street, start your own storefront congregation, and gossip and slander and cause problems over there. You ain't going to be causing no problems in this community, I can tell you that right now. Because Yahuwah will take you right out. Everybody who comes here and they cause a problem, they're not here anymore. Yahuwah either takes them out or I have to ask them to leave eventually. But we're getting to the point where we don't have to do that as long as we keep our hearts soft and we keep our hearts out of rebellion. Okay, you want to? Because if you don't keep your heart soft by listening to his voice every day, you're going to rebel. You might rebel at work. You might rebel on the job. You might rebel against your husband. You might rebel against your pastor. Okay, so if you realize that rebellion is witchcraft, and what do we do with witchcraft? We cast out those devils, right? Witchcraft is as a sin of rebellion. We find that in Shmuel Aleph chapter 15. So every time we rebel against the revealed word of Yahuwah, we are practicing witchcraft, which means you're being demonized. Now, you may not know it, you may not agree with it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that when you're rebellious against a community or a congregation or the leaders that Yahuwah has put in that season, you are practicing witchcraft. And if you're practicing witchcraft, he'll take you out of the assembly, he'll cause you to want to leave, okay, or until you repent, or you'll have to have the devil cast out of you. But to avoid that kind of trial, you may die in that rebellion. That's the problem with rebellion. You may die in that. You may never come out of the rebellion. So it's better not to rebel in the first place. So how do you hear his voice every day? Go back to verse 7. How do you hear his ruach every day? Do you have to hear, hello, prepare me toast? No. You don't have to hear voices. That's the problem with some of us. You've been hearing voices all your life. Now it's time to only hear the one voice. I love you. You're holy. You're blameless. You're perfect. The way I made you. Now get out of the way and let me work with you. Don't adopt other people's opinions or declarations or other people's decrees over you. If I lived in the decrees and declarations of other people in my life, I'd be a basket case, I'd be Baker acted, and I'd be in a nursing home or in some kind of mental facility. I had to ignore my father's voice. I had to ignore my mother's voice. I had to ignore other people's voices that came against me in the ministry, okay? They told me I was this, I was that, I was a pervert, I was that. Okay, they wouldn't listen to me because I was a glutton, because I'm a big guy. I'm not fat. I'm a big guy. Okay, look at this. I don't even lift weights. Look at this. I don't even lift weights. Okay? And I haven't lifted weights in months, actually. So I'm a big guy. The only place I have a little pouch, a little kangaroo pouch, is in my belly, over here. But if you take away my belly, I'm steel. I'm made of steel. That's part of the problem with my arthritis. when you're made of steel, it's kind of hard to flex. But regardless, okay. So we want to keep our hearts soft to avoid the trial, because we have a track record that a trial could turn into a tragedy instead of a testimony. Okay, write that down. A trial can turn into a tragedy rather than a testimony. Yahuwah sends trials in our lives because he wants those trials to turn into glorious, overcoming testimonies for him. You follow me? But the problem with trials is you can suffocate and die from the stress and the pressure and all the other things. So you will determine how trials are. Trials will either launch you into a testimony of healing, freedom, liberación, and deliverance, or trials will kill you in the wilderness. So which would you prefer that they are? Which of those two choices would you, and if you want, and you want the trials to make you better and not bitter, and to give you a testimony, okay, then you're going to have to work on keeping your heart soft. So one day you may be praying and waiting for his voice to speak to you. Another day you may be reading his word, and a great way to hear his voice, even if sometimes it's hard to do some of the other things, is to join us like most of you do on a daily basis. My core group, okay, the core group of my students, they join us on a daily basis. And that is hearing his voice, because in the Torah, in Exodus, the Kohen HaGadol had put on the choset, the breastplate with the 12 stones, okay? And that breastplate was called the choset. And it's very similar to the English word chosen, chosen. To be chosen, or to be chosen, is to have the authority of heaven, and the breastplate, to wear it as the breastplate of righteousness. Okay, the breastplate of righteousness, the armor of Yahuwah, Ephesians 6, putting on the breastplate of righteousness, that's a symbol to the world, the flesh, and the devil, that you are chosen. Okay? And in the Tanakh, it was only the Kohen HaGadol who was told to put on the choset. But in the renewed covenant, in Ephesians chapter 6, it is every believer who is required to put on the choset as a sign of his chosenness, to engage in overcoming life. Verse 9, your fathers, your avot, they tried me and they proved me. In other words, they were trying my patience. They were proving me, constantly testing me, and constantly seeing my work for 40 years. So instead of having the trials improve them, they got more and more and more rebellious. And the more they saw his miracles, the more they saw his work for 40 years, the more they hardened their heart. Okay? So people say, well, if I see signs and miracles and wonders, I will believe. No, you won't. People say, if I see more signs and wonders, it'll build my faith. No, it won't. You can't rely on signs, miracles, and wonders. You have to rely on thus saith Yahuwah. Thus saith Yahuwah. That's what we have to rely on. And I was grieved, verse 10, with that generation. See? Because Yahuwah, in his mercy, slaughtered that generation in the world. How can you say in his mercy he slaughtered? Because he was breaking the generational curse. Watch. By visiting that generation that came out of Egypt, instead of putting all the future generations under a curse, he just wiped out that generation and ended any generational curses that would be passed on to future generations. Make sense? So you see, we have to see things through heaven's perspective, because through the earthly perspective, oh, maybe Yahweh was a little bit too harsh, Maybe he went a little bit overboard. Okay, why did he have to kill or allow that entire generation that came out of Mitzrayim to die? Now, from the earthly perspective, it might seem harsh. Now, from the heavenly perspective, it's actually merciful. It's an act full of rachamim, because he didn't want that rebellion, which is witchcraft, okay? Hear me out here. Rebellion, which is as witchcraft, he didn't want demonic activity passed to the next generation and the next generation and all the generations that would enter the Holy Land or would enter the Promised Land. So that's why from heaven's perspective, it was an act of love, ahava. And from our perspective, it was harsh. But understand one thing. When you rebel against the word of Yahuwah and against his authority through his overseers, through his community, through whatever, you will meet him. Trust me, you will meet him. Just like Korach and those who were in rebellion, the 250 chiefs of Israel, they all met him, okay? So it's not a question of meeting Yahuwah. You want to either meet him as your judge or as your savior. I would much rather meet him as my savior, right? But when you harbor rebellion, and when you're cooking up rebellion, and when you're supporting even if you and I are not rebelling, if you're being supportive, listen carefully, if you're being supportive of somebody that is rebelling in the congregation or in the camp, you are equally rebelling, and you will meet Yahweh, but not the way you want to meet him. Because trust me, he hates rebellion. How do I know? If you look at Mishlei chapter 6, Proverbs chapter 6, these things Yahuwah hates, these 6 things Yahuwah hates, yea, 7 things, and one of the 6 things that he hates is he who sows rebellion or discord in the camp among brothers. Okay, so we have to be very careful to run from any rebellion, number 1, in our hearts, and number 2, in the camp. We have to be very careful that we don't allow rebellion as a state of our hearts, or in terms of actually playing it out among the saints. They always go wayward in their levavot. See, rebellion starts in the heart. I was grieved, verse 10, Hebrews 3:10. I was grieved. Thank you, Yochanan. Yes, we do honor you, Shaliach Moshe. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate that. Therefore, I was grieved with that entire generation because of that rebellion. They always go wayward in their levavot. So where does rebellion start? It's not, well, he did that to me, and she did that to me, and he didn't speak to me, and he forgot about me, or he didn't say Shabbat Shalom. That's childish nonsense. You need to grow up, man. All of us. We all need to grow up, okay? We're all human. We're just cut each other a little slack. So rebellion starts in the heart. And they have not known my halachot. They have not known my halachot. We have not known his ways. Boker Tov, Andrew. Boker Tov, brother. Boker Tov. Achoti, yes. Thank you. Okay, she receives it. They have not known my ways. Okay, if they had known my ways, they wouldn't be rebelling. You see what I'm saying? So we have to have a good heart, teachable and correctable, to avoid rebellion, and making sure that we hear his voice every day. That's key. That is the key. Verse 11. So therefore, in my wrath, in my disapproval, I swore that they would not enter my Shabbat, my rest. Okay? So receiving the promise is part of the reward, is part of the rest. And if you don't learn to avoid rebellion now, there is no rest, saith my Elohim, to the wicked. That's right out of the book of Isaiah. There is no rest, Shabbat or otherwise, saith Yahuwah, to the wicked. So you can go pursue your career, you can go chase money, you can do, but you're not going to have peace. You can divorce the jerk you're married to. You can do a million things, but guess what? Contentment, godliness, Shabbat guarding piety with contentment is great gain. Shabbat guarding piety with contentment is great gain. Give me neither riches or poverty. Give me enough. Give us this day our daily lechem. Give us this day our day. Don't give us caviar. Don't give us rice to eat every day for the rest of our lives. Give us neither riches or poverty. So godliness with contentment is great gain. So Yahuwah hates rebellion. Yahuwah doesn't hate sinners. So we get this all confused, okay? Just like religion and the herky-jerky churchy. Okay, we get it all confused. Yahuwah doesn't hate sinners. Yahuwah hates rebellion. And what else Yahuwah hates is when we know to do good and we do it not, it is sin. To him that knows to do good and doth it not, to him it is sin. Okay? So it is crucial that we enter his rest, and his rest begins here. You can come to Shabbat and not be at peace with the world. You can come to the Moadim and the Chodashim, the head of the month, every 30 solar days, and not have any peace. There is no peace, saith my Elohim, to the wicked. So the first rest is where we are content with his allotment, not our lot in life, but with the allotment that he gives us for our life. We are content. You don't have much of a house, but it's a house. You don't have much of a roof, but it's a roof. Okay? We have to be grateful. We need to be less complaining and more grateful. He swore that this entire generation will never have rest in their heart. Why? Because their heart wouldn't listen. People want rest in their heart. Exactly. You're thankful. That's Tov. People want rest in their heart. Okay? But they want to rebel. It doesn't work that way. If you want rest and shalom and tranquility in your heart, you can't be in rebellion against Yahuwah and his ways and his word and his leaders. It don't work that way, man. It don't work that way. I tried it. It didn't work. I used to say, I'm submitted to Yahuwah. I go to the synagogue and for years I was submitted, and then I would talk about the rabbi and complain about the rabbi and complain that I wouldn't have a position and that I wasn't an elder. Now, actually, I was in the congregation in Queens. Bob was an elder. Bob Korn was an elder. And I wasn't an elder. And I knew as much Bible as Bob did, and blah, 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 blah. I had all the reasons. So I had rebellion in my heart. And then Yahuwah took us out of that congregation, and I dishonored him. And I was set back many years in my discipleship because I hadn't yet learned the spiritual law and the spiritual principle of honor. And we have some teachings on honor on the YouTube. We have a series, I think it was 5 or 6. It was pretty intense. You may want to review that because honor will take you places money can't, education can't, college can't, okay? If you really want a lot of open doors in your life, you're going to have to learn and embrace the principle of honor. Yahushua said, I will honor those who honor the Son, right? And all those who honor the Son, my Father will honor, right? So it's a spiritual law that takes you up the chain of command. Thank you, Christia. I really appreciate you being with us. I appreciate your love and support. So that takes you up the chain of command, that honor. You get the Father, you get the Son, right? If you honor the Son, the Father will honor you. And then he said, and not only the Father will honor you, but the Father and the Son will come and make our abode with you. See? So then you'll begin to be able to hear his voice every day, and your heart will soften as you're able to hear his voice every day, and you'll have that rest and the tranquility that you're looking for. Some of us don't have rest. Here's a word in due season. Here's a word. I'm going to give you a word for some of you, and for some of you who are not listening because of rebellion, but should be listening. Are you ready? Some of you at one time understood the principle of honor, but because religious leaders or somebody else hurt you, you have withdrawn from the principle of honor. Now you give no honor to anybody sent by heaven, and you've transferred that honor to worldly secular men. Okay, so now the teacher and the doctor and the karate teacher, okay, you can't even do martial arts without calling that person Master Sinkyu, Schminkyu, Pinkyu, Bumpku, whatever the guy's name is, okay? Yes, Master. And you have to do a little bow of the head, a little curtsy, okay? As if they're on a throne. And I find that those traps where you, listen carefully, where you begin to transfer honor from the hardworking servants of Yahuwah that are there to bring unity in the body and until we all come to maturity in our most kadosh emunah, you transfer that honor, which means you're transferring your loyalty, which means you're actually violating the word of Yah. Instead of honoring the laborers in the vineyard and the overseers that Yahuwah has sent, you begin to transfer that honor to a teacher, to a doctor, to someone who's teaching karate, all that martial arts stuff, okay? You know, people have no problem bowing down. Yes, Sinkyu, Sinkwan, and whatever name those leaders use. And when you begin to transfer honor, you lose honor with the Son, you lose honor with the Father, and when it's time for them to honor you, you don't have honor. And then you wonder what went wrong. Well, what went wrong was you transfer that honor to a source that is not kadosh. Kadosh doesn't mean perfect, it means set apart. You're now giving honor to someone or something that is not set apart. We're not talking about perfect. No one's perfect. It's like, I'm not going to give honor to a thief. You're not going to give honor to a thief. Because the Torah says you shall not steal. But it's just as bad to omit as it is to commit. It would be wrong to commit honor to a thief, but it's just as wrong to omit honor from his servants. Okay? So that's why even though I'm friendly with a chiropractor, I'm friendly with a doctor, I don't just go in there and go, hey, James, what's happening, man? Hey, man, you get my CBD? No, it's, hi, Doc. Hi, Doc. Just to be respectful and to give honor, because I've come to learn that is one of the seeds of sowing and reaping. If you want people to honor you, you're going to have to rush, and I mean rush, to find a man or a woman of Yahuwah that you can start honoring. And I would be in a hurry about it if I were you, frankly. And if that offends you, I don't give a hoot, frankly, because I'm not in this for a popularity contest. As you can see, we don't have 10,000 people listening, right? Like some of these, like Bill Hybels' Willow Creek Church, right? We're not in it for the numbers. Yahushua changed the whole world upside down with 12 people. I don't need 20,000 people who study with us every day. I just need a couple of dozen that are dead serious about their emunah and are learning the principles of honor. Let me see what Sister Aliyah says. When you see the rebellion in individuals that are Torah keepers, and we call it out, is that wrong? If they refuse to seek holy correction and teshuvah, we should walk away from the rebellious person? Okay, it all depends, Allison. Let me do the first part first, because you're on the topic, all right? When you see rebellion in individuals that are Torah keepers, and we call it out, is that wrong? You have to follow the principles of Matthew 16, okay? Go to your brother and share that what you see as rebellion, and if he receives, then you've received your brother out of rebellion. If your brother doesn't receive it, take another witness with you and let them see that brother or sister is in rebellion, okay? And if he doesn't hear the two of you, the admonitions and the pleadings of two or three, then, and that two or three could be the leader of the community or the leader of the congregation, then it needs to be told to the entire assembly that this person is an outright, blatant rebellion. against the congregation or against the community. You follow what I'm saying? You have to follow the steps. Listen carefully. You have to follow the steps in Matthew 16. First, you go to the person that's being rebellious and reason it out and ask him to change and to stop rebelling. If you see no change in their words or their actions and they claim to be a Torah keeper, take 2 or 3 witnesses. So in a community setting, you would go to the sholiach and the elders, okay? If you're just alone and you're not part of a community and you're not part of a congregation, you already have a spiritual problem, okay? Some of you are part of the congregation because you're extended family. I understand that, and I accept that. You don't have a congregation where you are. This is your congregation. This is your community. I understand that. I'm glad for it, and I respect it. But that means when you have an issue, you bring it to our attention, okay? So you bring it, according to Matthew 16, 2 or 3 witnesses. If they fail to listen to the 2 or 3 witnesses in a congregational setting, it would be the overseer and the elders. Then it needs to be told to the community. And if they listen at that point, they're going to be restored. If they don't listen at that point, then obviously Yahuwah is going to have to remove that rebel from the camp. If they refuse to seek correction and teshuvah, should we walk away from the rebellious person? No. You should follow the 3 steps. After the Torah study today, go into your scriptures and go to Matthew 16, and you'll see the 3 steps that are required, okay? Once you follow those 3 steps, if the person has not changed, then Yahuwah will usually deal with that person by giving them the desire to go elsewhere, or they will have to be told to stay home, okay, to be removed from the camp. Thank you for breaking it down for me. I want to do everything out of Ahava. And I want to remain Ruach HaKadosh led. Yes. But rebellion needs to be called out, okay? So you as a child of Yah, you also are part of the chosen people, Israel. You have the chosed, the breastplate of righteousness, Ephesians chapter 6. So go to that person individually. If they hear you, you have regained your brother or sister. If, on the other hand, they do not hear you, you have to go to step 2. Yes, Matthew 16. That is correct. If you like me, I can give you the exact verses because it's important. Okay? I'll have to give you the exact verses. If they hear you, good. If not, go to the overseer, the sholiach, a pastor in a place that's a congregation, not a community like we have, and take it with the elder and tell it. And those 2 will confront the person who is being rebellious of the Torah and of the halakha of the faith. If they don't hear the elders to make teshuvah, turn around and repent. Teshuvah means to turn around, then tell it to the entire community, and they will have to be removed. So let me see what else you're saying there. Everything out of Ahava, that's correct. So let me know if you find the verses, okay? In Matthew 16. You're welcome. Let me know if you find those verses. But we can't jump to step 3. We have to go through the first 2 steps to give that individual every opportunity to just, to settle things and end any kind of rebellion on a one-to-one basis. Okay? Everything doesn't have to go right to the pastor or the overseer. It can be settled, if possible, among brethren. So Yahweh says there's no rest for that kind of rebellion. Verse 12, Shema, or hear, O Israel. Hear, Israelite brothers, lest there be so. In other words, hear that example. Hear what Yahweh is saying. Lest there be any of you with an evil heart of unbelief, and you depart from the living Eloha. So we are to hear Yahuwah's response to that generation's rebellion. And again, to avoid that kind of rebellion, we must keep our hearts soft. We must keep our hearts listening and soaking in every day. I'm glad you're having that coffee with us, Andrew. I have the water and I have the coffee, so I guess you can call it iced coffee, right? So we're on this. We're in the same boat. Tov. So rebellion is an evil heart. See, look at that. Look at verse 12. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. See, rebellion is an evil heart that departs. So if rebellion is not dealt with, that heart, it may start rebelling against the Torah and against Yahuwah's leaders or people. But eventually, that evil heart will lead the individual astray and away from Yahuwah. So it's better to have it dealt with. So we need to shema by listening and seeing and learning from their example. But rather than being rebellious, here is the solution to being rebellious. By the way, please use social media, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, whatever, to invite other people. Give them the link. Post the live link, please, so they can join us as well. Verse 13. We're in Hebrews 3:13. But exhort one another daily. So instead of being rebels and part of the problem, we become part of the solution. Exhort one another daily while you have today with you, while it is called today. Lest any of you become hardened in your lave, like love, heart. The Hebrew word for heart is lave, like love, lave. You become hardened in your lave through the trickiness or the seduction of sin. See, sin is very seductive. Righteousness begets righteousness. Sin begets sin. The problem with sinning is it's looking for more sin. It's another spiritual law. All right? Sin begets sin. Righteousness begets righteousness. So when you do a few righteous things according to the Torah, you begin to do more righteous things. Oh, I'm doing Shabbat. I'm going to do Chodesh. I'm doing Chodesh. I'm going to do the feast. I'm going to do the feast. I'm going to learn to honor my leaders. Okay. So righteousness leads to righteousness because human beings are people of habit. Okay. We form habits, but sin is also a habit. Sin begets sin. See, and we become hard. Our hearts become hard. And we become deceived by sin. And one of the main deceptions of sin is, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Nobody knows. There's no victims. And we have to repent. Like the other day I sinned. And then as soon as I sinned, I got down on my knees. And that's hard for me to do because I'm a little bit chunky around the pouch, okay? Even though I'm a big dude, but still I got that pouch. And I got down on my knees and I closed the doors to the enemy and I confessed my sins. And the word says if you confess your sins, he is faithful and just to forgive you of your sins. Okay? And so that's the issue with sin. It's not just not rebellion or disobedience to Yahuwah. The problem with sin is it is seductive. It deceives you into thinking that it's not that bad. Okay? And if it's not that bad, then it's something we can continue. Yeah, I can have extra there. Got to watch sugar too. Oh, okay. You're putting sugar in there? Okay, gotcha. So we got to make sure that our levavot stays soft. How? It goes back to where we began today. By some way and somehow, every day while it is called today, hearing his voice. If you hear his voice every day, you're going to do a lot better. You're going to make clearer decisions, and your thinking is going to be a lot clearer. I can tell you right now, everybody who tunes into this broadcast every day and hears the word of Yahuwah and hears the words of Yahuwah that are coming through me, you're going to make better decisions that day, and things are going to be clearer that day, and you're not going to be that confused. It's just a blessing and benefit to those who put in the time. See? Yes, you're welcome, Andrew. You see what I'm saying? If you put in the time in medical school, you're going to be a doctor. If you put in the time in dental school, you're going to be a dentist. You got to put in the time. If you want to have a circumcised heart and a soft heart, that knows how to hear his voice and avoid rebellion and the deceitfulness of sin, it's going to take time. It's going to take practice. You're going to have to develop a discipline of hearing his voice and his word every day. Yes, Matthew 5 through 28, the yeast. No, that's not what I was referring to. Let me see if okay, maybe it's Matthew 18. Maybe that's why you couldn't. Let me just check, all right? Just to be on the safe side. Okay, how to follow discipline with someone. I'm sorry, Aliyah, it's in Matthew 18. I'm sorry about that. Matthew 18. And you're going to be looking for primarily. Wait. Primarily verses 15. Thank you, Michael. You're putting in the time, brother. Dittos to Trinidad. Oh, there it is. You see? Matthew 18, 15 through 17. Okay? Aliyah, write that down, please. Matthew 18, 15 through 17. Okay, got it. My mistake. Baruch Hashem Yahuwah. So now we're going to go back to Hebrews, where we left off. Chapter 3. And let's see if we can finish this chapter today. Verse 14. We are to exhort one another. We are to encourage one another instead of approving or going along with rebellion. Okay, we are to exhort. We are to reprove. Exhort one another daily. That's right, verse 14. Exhort one another daily. We are partakers of Moshiach, the anointed one, if we hold on to the beginning of our confidence, again, confidently, firmly confident to the end of our race. Again, we are saved providing we finish our race. Okay, and the race is the end of our life, being as faithful then as we are today, and that requires the discipline of hearing his voice every day. And if we hear his voice, and if we're faithful and disciplined to put him first every day, we'll make it to the end. We'll make it to the finish line. But if you put other things before him every day, you ain't going to make it to the finish line. I can tell you that right now. I can prophesy that right now. If you're not spending time in the Word and studying the Word, the way the kingdom operates, how the kingdom of light operates and has victory over the kingdom of darkness, if you're not spending time in seeking the things of the Ruach, to have a soft heart, that means you're not partaking of the things of the Messiah on a daily basis. But we need to hold to the things of the Messiah that he has taught us from the beginning when he began his discipleship process with us, and we confirm that until the end of our life. Verse 15. While it is said today, see, it's all about today. What we do today will determine where we are tomorrow, and where we are tomorrow will determine if we finish our race. You see, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm never going to deny him. I'm going to be faithful to the end." And even today, they are not putting him first. So if you're not going to put him first today and hear his voice today, so that your heart doesn't get hard, verse 15, today, and you're going to be in rebellion today, how on earth are you going to be confident that you're going to finish? You lack confidence. If you want confidence, hear his voice today. That'll give you the confidence and the encouragement that you need to keep going. If we're lacking confidence and encouragement to finish our race, it's because we're not allowing him, we're not hearing his voice today. So it's a daily decision. And some of the mess we're in now is because of the bad decisions we've made in days gone by when we didn't listen to his voice. Oh, man, that's a good point. Power, eye-opener. So if you want to be in a different place, living in a different house in 2 years or 2 months, you're going to have to do things differently than you did years back that put you in the place which you are now. Okay, people want to, that's a definition of dummy. To keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Keep gossiping, keep complaining. No place is good enough. They're all hypocrites. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to hide. Keep doing those things. You're going to keep getting the same results. That's the definition of stupidity. If you want to be somewhere else in your life, if you want to be walking close to the Ruach and have friends, you may have to move here. You might have to come to Florida and join the community. And then you'll have friends surrounded by friends. Not just people you speak to once in a while on the phone. That's nice to speak to people on text message, but it doesn't, or on the phone, but it doesn't substitute being in a community where you're always on people's mind. You know, you're going through a child custody, you're going through a thing with your lawyer or with your doctor. There are people here that care and that will help or pray or just be there. Okay, and that builds us confidence. Mashiach is here. He's here because his people are here and they care. While it is today, hear his voice. That means you will not wind up with a hardened lave and you will not wind up in rebellion, instead of in encouragement and confirmation, so that you will finish. None of us will finish our race unless we have the confirmation and the encouragement of other believers. I'm telling you that right now. Isolation is the devil's workshop. When you were isolated, you were sick. When you were isolated, you couldn't get around. When you were isolated, you couldn't walk. That's the devil's workshop. Okay? And the best disinfectant is light. Light is the best disinfectant. Bring it to the light. Come out of the shadows and come to the light. Confess your faults to one another, and in so doing, you will be healed. The more stuff you hide, the more you're going to be retarded in your spiritual life. The more you're open and honest, and the more things you present in the light, and stop making excuses. Well, I don't want to go to that Bible study. Everybody's a hypocrite. I don't want to be sharing my stuff. I don't want to put my stuff out there. Then you're not ready to be transparent. Light is transparent. You got to put your stuff out there. How else are you going to be healed if you keep hiding it? That's why those men's fellowships are so important, and women's. When men and women can get together and say, hey, man, I got a problem with lust. Hey, I got a problem with jealousy. Okay? You need the other women. You need the other men. If you're not transparent, you're going to have a hard time getting healed. That's why we pay $120 to a psychiatrist, someone we can pour out our heart to and be transparent for. So we'll pour out our heart to a psychiatrist for $120, but we're going to run from women's Bible studies where confession and prayer by other women can get you healed for free. I mean, we're retarded. We're stupid. We're dumb people. We're as dumb today as we were back then. There's no difference. Why are people paying $120 to a counselor? So they can pour their heart out, they can pour their emotions out, and hopefully get healed, right? And they spend Shalom, Brother Amos. They spend $120. Nice to have you with us, Brother Amos. They spend $120 when there are other men. Hey, man, I'm dealing with pornography. Pray for me. Hey, man, I'm drinking too many beers. I'm sliding right back to the way I was. Pray for me. So we're there to encourage one another, to exhort one another, to hear one another. Confess your faults one to another, and you will be healed. So the more stuff you lay in front of your trusted brethren, not people that'll get information, go on the internet, lie about you, and stab you in your back. You know who you can trust. But once you find a bunch of ladies you can trust, you want to come to those ladies' meetings and say, hey, man, I want to confess something. I was angry with you. I was angry with the community. I was walking in bitterness. I was walking in unforgiveness. And let me tell you something. Unforgiveness is an open door to the enemy. Okay? We'll talk more about that another time. Amen to the men's chabura. Yeah, it was awesome. Counseling from someone who doesn't keep Torah. Exactly. There are people who will go, now, okay? Because sometimes people know the Torah and they just use the Torah in a way as a crutch. So sometimes secular counseling is very helpful because it makes you not use scripture as a crutch. In other words, if scripture says don't steal, okay, and your psychiatrist says, well, wait a second, the fact that you steal is because you have this issue and that issue and this. They can point out issues. So there is a place for secular counseling. I'm not dissing secular counseling, but I'm saying to you is that people who run from accountability and bringing things to the light wind up being rebellious and wind up having a hardened heart. And we already know how Yahweh deals with hardened hearts and rebellious people. So encouraging one another, admonishing one another, partaking of the Ruach, the Spirit of the Messiah in our lives will keep us confident. We hear his voice on a daily basis. And when we have confidence, we will be firm to hold fast. So when someone leaves, we won't be shaken. When someone doesn't like the assembly, we won't be shaken. When someone doesn't like you, you won't be shaken. Okay? And that is very important for us to encourage one another, exhort one another, and get together all the more as you see the day of his return approaching. So we don't want to harden our heart like in the rebellion. Linda Thomas says, Torah, trust, just listen for Yahuwah Yahusha. Amen, amen. Verse 16, for some when they had heard did rebel. It was not those who came out of Mitzrayim. Was it not those who came out of Mitzrayim with Moshe? Although not all of them, see? So they heard the words of Yahuwah, but they rebelled. And who were the ones that rebelled? It was the ones who had received the blood of Passover, the blood of redemption. They weren't strangers. They were Israelites who should have known better, but not all of them rebelled. 17. But with whom specifically was Yahuwah grieved by their rebellion for 40 years? Was it not those who sinned and their bodies fell in the wilderness, their carcasses? So the wages of sin is death, okay? So when we sin in our lives, we've got to give it to Yahuwah. We've got to get rid of it. And every day we got to hear his voice. Because if you're listening to his voice every day and you're receiving the word of Yahuwah every day, okay, you don't have to die in the wilderness. You don't have to die alone. You will always be surrounded with his ahava, and you will always be surrounded with your brothers and sisters in a community setting, in this ministry being an extended community. Some of you live in Texas, some of you live in Canada. So this is you're part of our extended community if you don't have one locally. And that's why these daily get-togethers are so important, because we began this Torah study with the admonition, today, if you will hear his voice. And again in verse 15, Yahuwah emphasizes the same thing. Look at verse 15. Today. Because if you hear his voice today, you won't wind up in a bad place tomorrow. If you hear his voice tomorrow, you won't wind up in a bad place on Thursday. If you hear his voice on Thursday, you won't wind up. We daily required to hear his voice. That is a requirement. That will keep your heart from rebellion. As long as you hear his voice, that will keep your heart from rebellion. It'll keep your heart right, and you will have a better tomorrow than you have today. Remember, you are today in the place you are today, good, bad, or ugly, because of the decisions you made in past days. If you want to be in a better place in a month from now, in 2 months from now, you're going to have to make decisions today that are different. They're different, and have the courage of your conviction. You have to have the courage of your convictions to finish your race. If everybody else leaves, I'm staying. If everybody else gossips, I'll stop the gossip. If everybody else is attacking the men of honor or teachers and shlichim, I will stand in the gap and take the arrows. No one's going to talk about our leaders that way. That's what it means to be built up, and that's what it means to be faithful. Even Moses died for his rebellion. Even Aaron died for his rebellion. I want you to think about that. Joshua and Caleb didn't die, but Moses rebelled and he died. Think about that. Aaron rebelled. That means I, or any of our elders, if we rebel, we're going to have the same results. Our carcasses are going to fall in the battle. There is no guarantee that you and I are going to finish our race unless we are committed to hearing his voice daily for leadership, guidance, correction. Some days it may be a voice. Some days it may be this teaching. Some days it may be reading the word. Some days it may be a conversation that encourages and exhorts you to stay faithful. But every day you've got to hear his voice. That's got to be a thing on a daily basis. You can't come on Shabbat, hear the word, and expect to have a victorious life. The kingdom doesn't work that way. So over and over and over in Hebrews chapter 13, Yahuwah keeps saying the same thing. Over and over and over. Today, if you will hear his voice. So tuning in once on Shabbat, I'm sorry, in all due respect. Courage of my convictions to finish the race. Baruch Hashem Yahuwah. Yes, Michael. Yes, sister, I know you're having thunderstorms, but Yahuwah will still get the word out even through the thunderstorm. So he was grieved with everyone whose bodies, and whose bodies also fell with that generation. Moses. Moses smote the rock twice, and he was told to speak to the rock. He rebelled. His carcass fell in the wilderness. We don't realize that. We somehow have divorced that from that entire generation. And it took Aaron up to Mount Hor, come up to Mount Hor, take off all the kadosh begadim, all the kadosh garments, and go and die and be gathered to your fathers. And Eliezer, your son, you will anoint as Kohen Moshe. You will anoint Eliezer, the son of Aharon, to be the new Kohen Hagadol. Aaron didn't make it into the promise, and he was the first high priest. Moshe was the deliverer and savior of our people. He didn't make it for his own disobedience. So because we need to allow his voice to guide, lead, teach, build up some way, somehow on a daily basis. That means you might have to cancel a doctor's appointment. That means you might have to reschedule a chiropractor's appointment. That means you may have to tell your wife that you're going to close the door and just be alone with Yahuwah for an hour. It works. It blesses. It bubbles up. It bubbles up into abundant, victorious living. Okay? And to whom did he swear that they should not enter his rest, but to them that believe not? That's right. So even Moses and Aharon, they got caught on a day when they didn't believe. Look at that. Even Moshe and Aharon got caught on a day that they did not believe. And that one day, I want you to think about this. One day can destroy your life. You go out, do something stupid, rob a bank, you live righteously, you pastor a congregation, you pray 10 times a day. You're doing everything right. You rob one bank. You had one bad day. And you got weak in your flesh and you didn't trust Yahuwah. And you had a spirit of fear come upon you because of finances, and you go rob a bank, your life is over. You're in jail for 30 years, armed robbery. This is why we must be pliable every day. One bad day can destroy your life. You get into an argument with your wife, somebody loses their temper, now all things are out of control. The open door of the devil has come in to steal, kill, and destroy. Someone grabs a kitchen knife, stabs their spouse, and their life is over, their family is over, their reputation is ruined, and they might as well just die. It's all over. Murder, suicide time. Every day, we have to be pliable, and we have to allow the Ruach to keep us calm, to keep us focused, and to keep us humble. So this is not an easy walk. Discipleship is not an easy walk. It's a daily discipline. Not easy. Y'all think it's easy me coming to you every day for an hour? Not easy. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Have you ever preached 365 messages in a year? I haven't. Not easy, right? But the Ruach can, right? I can do all things, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through the Mashiach Yahushua who strengthens us, right? It's not easy delivering the word of Yahuwah, and it's not going to be easy, thank you, brother, and it's not going to be easy receiving the correction of the word of Yahuwah on a daily basis. But what else? What other choice do we have? Do we want to wind up like the deliverer, dead in the wilderness? Do we want to wind up like the first high priest, his brother? They didn't make it. We forget that sometimes. Like, oh, well, that generation was rebellion. What about the leaders? That means if you're called by heaven, you could still wind up in rebellion. If at some point, to be firm and to be confident and to run your race, you must drink of the fountain of living water on a daily basis. I'm telling you, you cannot show up on Shabbat once a week and expect to be a more than a conqueror. You could be saved and you could be content to a certain point, but to be a light, to be salt, to your presence to affect people's lives and to make decisions that will put you in a beautiful place to be his ambassador, that's only going to be done by daily discipline. 19. So we end with verse 19. So in conclusion, we see that it was behind the rebellion, behind the evil, was a spirit, that's a demonic spirit of lack of trust, unbelief. So as we finish, what area in your life are you lacking trust? Is it finances? Is it a spouse? Is it a job that you're looking for, a place to live? What area in our life do we lack trust? Because when his voice tells you to do something, you got to do it. And sometimes his voice is going to tell you to do things without money, and you got no money. Sometimes his voice is going to tell you to do things, and you haven't seen the results. Sometimes his voice is going to pull a Genesis 12:1 and 2 on you. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when he pulls a Genesis 1:2 on you? Leave your family, leave your country, and go to a land that I will show you. Where am I going? I ain't telling you. Where am I going to live? I ain't telling you. How am I going to pay my bills? I ain't telling you. Am I going to be single for the rest of my life? I ain't telling you. Get up, get out of your country, and go into a land and a place that I will show you.